What's going on, guys? Welcome in. We're gonna hit I want to share today a perspective to kind of challenge to encourage you to challenge yourself, I guess I should say. It's not for me to challenge you or what you do or what you think. But that's what today's live is about. It's about challenging judgment and our perceptions. And so for those of you as you're coming in who may not already be familiar with me, my name is Dr. Marci Batiste. I'm the founder and executive director of 9 Seconds Domestic Violence Prevention, where we have a very non-traditional approach and a heart-centered mission towards the prevention of all forms of domestic and relational violence. So this subject actually goes right into the prevention work that we do. And it's funny because the story that I'm going to share with you guys today, the incident happened probably 2, maybe 3 months ago. And it didn't even dawn on me, it didn't register with me that anything powerful or impactful is happening. But as the title suggests, sometimes your best lessons come from very, very unexpected places. And for me, this life lesson, ironically, I am reading Will Smith's book, Will. And if you haven't gotten the book, I encourage you to get it. He does a great job of narrating a lot of powerful life lessons, as well as I have it on audiobook. I totally encourage the audiobook because it's very, very engaging and very interacting. That being said, I had an incident one day. So I've been going to the same car wash for probably, other than the 2 years that I lived outside of Arizona, I've been going to the same car wash for, I kid you not, at least probably 6 years, 7 years. And for the last several years, there's been this guy there. It's one of the car washes where you just drive through and then the people dry off your car or whatever, you can get out and they'll vacuum it and so forth. Well, this guy happens to man the bay that when you manually drive your car through yourself for just an exterior wash, nothing with the interior, then he's one of the guys who rolls up with the towel and dries your car off. And when I tell you this individual has like the friendliest, warmest, most genuine smile, and there's always a wave. He's very jolly, he's very jovial. And for those of you who've been to Arizona in the summertime, it's 120 degrees out there sometimes, right? These guys are out there, and where his station is located for his job function is in direct sun. So it is literally hotter than hell, right? And so, but not once in all the times I've been through there, and I get my car washed probably 3 to 4, sometimes 5 times a week. Not once have I ever gone through there and him not greet me with a smile, a friendly wave. Hey, Lisa. He always has this like bubbly, jovial personality, right? And so you know how you are when you're in the car wash, just kind of in your own zone. You're not really thinking like nothing about nothing, right? A lot of times I'm working on my phone, I'm doing something, whatever, while the car's, on the auto conveyor through the wash. Not one time, I want y'all to understand, not one time has he ever even given the perception that he's having a bad day. He's never once given the perception that being out there in 120 degree heat, drying off my car because I'm too lazy to get out and do it myself, is a problem, right? And I think to myself, oh my gosh, like that would suck. Like I would hate to have to do that. Like that would suck. Like Why would anybody sign up for that? But I mean, there's a don't get me wrong, there's a number of really great people at this particular car wash. I would drive out of my way to go there, right? It just so happens where I live now, it's really close to me. But this one guy in particular. So after all these years, we've never spoken, because my windows, are always up because I just come out of the car wash. He's drying off the car. Never ever spoken. A couple months ago, I happened to be, I had sent the car through to get the interior done. So I was sitting outside at one of the benches and I was waiting for them to finish up with my vehicle. Kind of in my zone, not really paying attention. He walks up with his normal, jovial, friendly smile, and there happened to be a break in between the cars coming through the car wash. So he comes over and he's like, hey, how are you doing today? I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm really good. How are you? And I think initially that's going to be the end of it. But he goes on and he says, and with the biggest smile ever, he said, next month is my 5-year anniversary here. I was like, oh, that's what's up. Congratulations. Like, that's awesome. And then this is where things changed, you guys. And this is why I say we have to challenge our perceptions, and we have to challenge our own tendencies to judge based on what we could experience or what we could tolerate or what we would find beneficial. Some things, like I shared in a post today, there's more to the situation, there's more to the person, there's more to the circumstance than what you can see with your own eyes out the gate, right? So this is what he says to me. He's super, super pumped that his anniversary is coming up, and it's been 5 years. And he goes on to tell me that 5 years ago was when he came home from prison for the second time. And so he said, the first time I went down, I was down for, what did he say? 8 years. I want to say he said 8 years, something like that. He said, and my dad, he stuck by me the whole time. Put money on my books, came to visit, made sure I was straight, gave me everything, like made sure I had what I needed to do my time. I was like, wow. I said, for the whole time. And he said, yeah. And he said, when I got out, he was like, I went back to the streets. He said, I started doing the same dumb stuff that I was doing before I went down for the first 8. And he said, when I got locked up the second time, my dad wasn't there. He said, you know what? This time, he said, I held you down the first time. This time, you're on your own. And he said, and I did that time by myself. He said, I didn't have anybody on the outside looking out for me. He said, I didn't have anybody, holding anything down. He's like, occasionally, friends from the hood would, throw some money on my books or whatever. He said, but for the most part, he said, I did that whole, he said, it was 5 years. He said, I did that whole 5 years by myself. He said, but I've been home now for 5 years. And he said, I got this job the week after I got out the last time. He said, I've been home for 5 years. He said, and I've been working here ever since. And I said, wow, that's a powerful, powerful testimony. And I said, so what do you think was your ability to now? Because the last time he was only out, I think he said for like maybe 6 months before he ended up reoffending. I said, what do you think has allowed you to be successful this time and to not go back? And he said, honestly, he was like, this place. 120 degrees, drying cars in the Arizona sun. He's grateful for that place, and he's grateful for that job. And what he showed me that it took Will Smith to kind of highlight for me, like I was in awe in the moment about his story, but Will Smith in his book says something so profound that I was like, you know what? I want to share, his name is Emilio. I want to share Emilio's story because Emilio was grateful for a job that so many of us would find belaboring, demeaning, menial, insignificant. But for him, that job, drying cars in 115, 110, 112, direct sun, Arizona heat, in a dark colored uniform, is his freedom. It represents his freedom. It represents him not being in prison anymore. You know, and one of the things we talk about at 9 Seconds, we always talk about fostering freedom for women. We talk about reclaiming your independence. Emilio does that every day at the car wash, doing something that some of us would find belittling. Like, some people would be ashamed to say, that's where I work, but he's incredibly proud of the fact that he works there, and he's incredibly proud of his 5 years of not going back and not reoffending. And I want to suggest to you that your perception is created by the generational system that you're born into. Our generational system tells us the things that we should hold in esteem, the things that we should apply value to. It tells us how we should look at the world. It teaches us how we view people, places, things, situations, circumstances, jobs, relationships, religion, sex, alcohol, drugs. Everything is taught inside the generational system. And so the system that he came up in, going to prison wasn't no big deal. Like, it was kind of just a foregone conclusion that eventually you will end up in prison. And so for Emilio, the second time, he said being locked up and not having anybody support him, it drove something home. And he said he's incredibly grateful for his father for not supporting him the second time, for not being down with whatever he had done, for not being the one, not being there, not writing letters, not coming to visit, not putting money on his books. He left him on his own to his own devices to figure out how to serve the time and do the time for the crime that he committed. And he said what he learned was that it was his choices. Y'all, I talk about the power of choice, like that literally is your superpower, is your power to choose. And so he was just like, you know, I had to get myself away from the people that I had always been hanging out with. Like, I couldn't go back to my neighborhood. I couldn't kick it with the same people. I couldn't do the same things I was doing before, because it would land me back in prison. And so for Emilio, that car wash in the sun, drying cars, he's grateful. He's grateful not for just the job, not for a paycheck. He's grateful for his freedom. And that's what I want to hone in on, you guys. Like, we find freedom in different places, and freedom means something different to everyone. You know, some people, when you think of the national anthem and you think of national freedoms and you think of rights to, at the end of the day, it's the power of choice, and freedom gives you back your power to choose. And so every day he chooses to come in there and freaking just be happy and be grateful. And he shares a smile and he shares a wave, and like, he's super excited. And I don't know if he's like that with just me. I don't know if he's like that with everybody. But anytime I've ever been there, Emilio's like, hey, if he sees me and I'm across the way, but he's busy, he's like, hey. Our perceptions are created in our generational systems, and our generational systems teach us how to respond and react and behave and move in the world. But we still have a superpower, which is the power of choice. And one of the thing that Will Smith taught me in his book this morning was that, I forget how he phrases it, but he says, basically to play the hand that you're dealt and not worry about the ones you wish you had. And so I take it one step further and I say, focus on playing the cards that you have and stop stressing over the ones you wish you had. It'd be very easy for Emilio to say, I wish I had a different job. I wish I had whatever. And he could probably, I don't know If he can get a different job, I don't know. But all I know is that every day when I come through the car wash, he chooses to be happy. He chooses to make an uneventful, unmemorable thing a memorable thing. Like, how dope is that? That you have that much power in your choices to choose to be grateful and to choose to understand that your choices are your gateway to your freedom. Your generational system may have formed the foundation, but you're not cemented to that system. You can reconstruct the system, and that's what Emilio has been able to successfully do in choosing to avoid the people, avoid the places, avoid the things. He's doing things different than he did before, and he's getting a different result. And so he views that that job at the car wash as his freedom. And he understands, like, as long as I'm here and I'm doing a good job, you know, he was telling me he was up for a raise and, you know, all this thing. And mind you, this conversation probably lasted maybe 3 or 4 minutes. But here I am 3 months later talking about it. See, it doesn't take big things to make a big impact on people. And it doesn't take, you don't have to be somebody special. You don't have to have a platform. And y'all see me say all the time with all my books and my coaching programs, like everything, my training programs, there's value in your story. There's value in your story. And you don't have to have this big, huge, dramatic story to offer value to someone through your story. Right? Emilio gives value to people every day with a smile, a wave. Sometimes his rag's not all the way dry and it leaves streaks on my car. And I don't even care about that because the experience has been good. And so the way to get out of and detach yourself from your perceptions and your tendencies for judgment is exposure. It's exposure. And so you have to be able to and be willing to expose yourself to other possibilities, expose yourself to the idea that something different is possible, that something better is out there for you, right? So that's my word today, guys. I just wanted to share Emilio's story. And like I said, like there's tons of nuggets in Will Smith's book. But that one really stood out today, and it specifically made me think of Emilio and the fact that he had certain cards dealt to him in his generational system. The crimes he committed, you know, selling drugs, running the streets, being in a gang, that was part of his system. That's what he was born into. But when he got out of prison the second time, he used his superpower of choice to say, you know what? Those were the cards I was dealt. And he played them for as long until he chose to pull a new card. He chose to throw that hand in, pull out a new one from the deck. And so if you're somebody who is struggling with how you perceive your circumstance, if you're struggling with how you perceive your situation, if you're struggling with the generational system that you're born into, if you're struggling with where do you fit in this world, what's your space, what's your you know, how can you make a difference? How can you make an impact? Believing that there's no value in your story. I'm here to tell you, just like Emilio at the car wash, there's value in your story, and you don't have to have something larger than life to make a difference in someone else's life. And it doesn't take a big thing for you to be able to reclaim your freedom. That superpower of choice allows you to start reclaiming your freedom. So when we talk at 9 Seconds about fostering freedom for victims of domestic violence, survivors of domestic violence, relational violence, intimate partner violence, you know, there's a power of choice that goes along with that. And so that generational system of abuse, we can still use our superpower of choice to start creating and restoring and reclaiming our freedom and our independence, just like Emilio did when he got out of prison 5 years ago. He said, this isn't going to be my thing. I'm not ever going back. His pops showed him that, you know, you have your superpower of choice. You want to choose to deal drugs? You want to choose to be in the streets? You want to choose to run with a gang? Okay. Do you, boo. Be great at it. But guess what? If you go down again, bro, you're on your own. You're on your own. And so he knows, like, this job, I'm a felon. I'm a two-time felon. But they gave me a shot. I get a paycheck. That paycheck is enough to put a roof over my head, food on my table, and manage my responsibilities. With those things, I'm free. I'm not going back to prison. I'm not going to have to figure out how to survive, because my superpower of choice just says, just show up, come to work. So our perception, our judgment would be that that job is menial. It's hard. It's, you know, a lot of things. And Emilio taught me that my perception of what's hard and his perception of what hard is are not the same. Neither one's wrong. Neither one's wrong. But he chooses, he uses his superpower to choose and say, this isn't hard. This is a blessing. I'm grateful to be able to come here and get a paycheck and pay my rent. I'm grateful to have rent to pay. I'm grateful to have an apartment. I'm grateful to have my own space. I'm grateful to be able to choose my food. I'm grateful for all the things that the prison system took from him because of his choice. The prison system stole a lot. But did they really steal it, or did he give it to them with his choices? Right? So he knows, if I come here, everything that I experienced when I was down, I don't have to experience that. So this isn't hard. Coming here drying these cars isn't hard. Even if it is 120 outside. It's not hard compared to doing prison time. Neither perception is wrong. They're different. And they're different based on experiences, exposures, and our generational system. I was not born into a generational system that said that going to prison for me was even an option. Jail for me has always been a deterrent, right? I got pulled over when I was 16 and hauled into the police station because I pulled out in front of, it's a long story, but the point is, when I got pulled into the police station and sat in that back room by myself, and I have been drinking, and I'm trying to give myself, you know, to walk the line test. Like, if it was today, you know, there would have been cameras in the room and I would have been so busted. Right? That was enough to tell me, yeah, you're not built for that. But the generational system that Emilio was born into said that going to prison is a matter of time. It's not a question of if. And so what we train and challenge to change is that the generational system that you're born into does not have to be the same system that is birthed from you. That superpower of choice gives you an opportunity to reconstruct the system and create a new experience for yourself, for your children, for your children's children. It works for victims of domestic violence. It works for people who have addiction. It works for people who have, all sorts of challenges. If you can shift your mindset to say, this is hard, but realize there are other things that are much harder, it can sometimes lend a space of gratefulness and gratitude that maybe you might have missed on the way in, right? And so I want you to try this. I want you to try, when you see somebody doing something, a job per se, working retail over the holidays, maybe when you go to a restaurant, the waitress has a crappy attitude. I want you to think for just a moment what that individual's story is. I want you to think about their superpower of choice, what brought them to that space and to that moment. And I want you to think about how you came to be in that same space. What choices did you make and what choices did they make? And take an opportunity, ask them, what made you, how'd you get into this line of work? Whatever. Just take the opportunity to challenge. This is your challenge to change. This is a challenge to change moment. Take an opportunity to challenge your perception and your tendency for judgment. And remember that just like for you, and there's value in your story, there's value in their story. But you have to remember that not everybody understands that there's value in their story. I'm sure that Emilio does not understand, or maybe didn't understand, his ability to impact people by how he smiles when he drives your car, and the friendly, I can't even mimic it. It's just such a friendly, upbeat type of thing. He changes people's lives with a smile and a wave. And back in Des Moines, I see Maria on here. Back in Des Moines, there was a guy who used to, I don't know if he was homeless or what his circumstance was, but all my childhood, teen years, like he's sort of like famous in Des Moines. And he used to travel all around the neighborhood. I mean, this man walked everywhere. And he's scruffy, and he looked homeless. I don't know if he was or not. We used to call him Smiley, but that's what he did. He would stand on the side of the road and he would wave feverishly, passionately, waving and smiling, to the point that everybody may not have ever known his name, but if you said, hey, Smiley, everybody know who you're talking about. Everybody know who you're talking about. He changed people's lives. He changed your day based on his superpower of choice, which was, regardless of his circumstance, just to smile and wave. Just to smile and wave. It doesn't take anything special to make a difference in somebody's life. So the challenge to change is challenge your perception, challenge your rush to judgment, your tendency for judgment, and don't think that because you judge that it makes you a bad person. We all have certain judgments, right? Like, I would judge and say that job was hard and that job at the car wash would suck, and I would judge and say, maybe he can't get another job. I don't know if he can or he can't. But what I can tell you is he's grateful where he's at. And what I might see as limiting, he sees as freedom. Now, if that's not a challenge to judgment and perception, I don't know what is. So that's the message, guys. I hope you all have a tremendously amazing day. Remember that there's value in your story. Focus on the cards that you have, not the ones that you wish you had, like Will Smith says. And make the best with the cards that you have. It doesn't take a lot to make a difference. So have a good one. In the meantime and in between time, stay happy, stay well, stay blessed, and most importantly, stay safe. Talk to you later.